What's up, guys? Dave, Duncan, Kyle, back from Metal Epidemic. Back for another album review. And for this review, Duncan, Kyle and I have been checking out the new album from Long Island born five-piece thoughtcrimes. The band's new album, Altered Pasts, will be released on August 26th via Pure Noise Records. The brainchild of former Dillinger Escape Plan drummer Billy Reimer, it all just started as a bit of fun for when he was home on Long Island in between Dillinger tours. He said pretty much he'd given up playing guitar because, well, Dillinger. But one time when he was home, his longtime friend and now thoughtcrimes guitarist Brian Sullivan thought otherwise. He convinced Billy Reimer that he should pick up the instrument again, and when he did, they ended up writing their first song. In 2019, some 2 years after Dillinger called it a day, thoughtcrimes, completed by Rick Peppa, guitarist Russ Savaris, and bassist Cody Hoza, digitally released their debut EP, Tap Night, a record they wrote in just 1 week.
Yeah, it's been.
My God. Now, Pure Noise are not only putting that record out in vinyl, but will also release the band's debut album, Altered Pasts. While the full length in some ways feels and sounds like a natural sequel to Tap Night, Reimer says it's much less intentional and deliberate than that. Honestly, it's just us developing our sound, explained Reimer, who played both guitar and drums on this record. I've been more hands-on making this record than any other record I've ever made or participated in. I was there playing multiple instruments, most rhythm guitars, a couple of bass things, a lot of the synths, programming and stuff. I even went down to the beach to record ambience on my phone and threw it in there. I made a little piece of my home in this album. The result is a whirlwind of a record, recorded and engineered by Mike Watts at Voodoo Studios, for the most part, at the start of 2020. Altered Pasts is the perfect soundtrack for the quasi-dystopian times we find ourselves in. So, we did a reaction to one of the singles from the album.
Keyhole Romance.
Yes,
yeah.
Of which there were many singles. I think it was like 5 or something like that released. So basically half the album. You probably had a bit of an idea what to expect if you'd listened to the singles. But we were quite excited after listening to that track to hear the rest of the album. Duncan, what did you think? What did you make of the rest of this?
So it kind of lives up to a lot of what I was hoping it would, and maybe the unhigh expectations I had overall weren't necessarily met, but not in a bad way, and I'll kind of clarify that a bit more as we go on. So I mean, the big elephant in the room, and the elephant that we have to address here, is it does have a lot of Dillinger in it, right?
Yeah,
really?
Nah. It may have one of the members of Dillinger, but as he is playing so many instruments on the album, it kind of bleeds through. Now, in a world where Dillinger Escape Plan were still a touring band, or still a band, an entity, then he recently posted an article saying that I think even the rights and claims to the name of the band itself have expired due to inactivity. I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently it is.
Doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound right. I think it was Greg being a little bit dramatic.
Yeah.
I would never say that to his face though, because he would fold me up like a pretzel. Big guy.
I'd say it to his face, but behind his back, and then I'd point to you.
I'd say it to his face behind like military plexiglass and a security detail. So yeah, like taking into account, like I say, there's plenty in here that has that grab of Dillinger. It has those jazzy staccato drums, has those like decadently kind of discordant guitars, and just the ferocity of when the band are turned on. Dillinger, there are very few bands that have that switch, that on switch, and he is a big part of that. I know what he's saying, right? The guitars, I never did guitars in Dillinger because look at who was doing guitars, right? That's fine, but those guitars making those jingly jangly noises and all that ferocity is nothing without the drums behind it creating that backdrop of chaos. And like that's the big element here, that when you insert that in here, it's difficult not to have those comparisons. But to say that this is just a Dillinger clone is, like, frankly, a massive disservice to what Thought Crimes actually do. We'd mentioned it on Keyhole Romance. Specifically, the vocals that you get in this one are shades of Greg Puciato, but at the same time, they're not. And that's the cool thing about it. When it comes to the screaming stuff, totally is. 100% is. The melody, at times, it is.
Wee bit.
But he has a higher range for a start, and a different sounding voice. I think you said during the Keyhole Romance that you felt that you could hear little shades of Glassjaw in there.
Yeah.
They are more prominent throughout the rest of the release. Glassjaw is a band I love. Maybe not live, but on CD or whatever the kids are listening to now. I do genuinely like them. They always had that experimental nature. They were also a band that had flurries of that kind of waves of intensity that you would come out, you just feel like you were listening to kind of distilled, bottled anarchy for like small bursts before the kind of saccharine vocals would kick back in. And that's here. Like, you are getting that. There's also a little bit of Deftones. Can't get away from that. Which is not a bad thing. Every band should have a little bit of Deftones in them. They should all have a mini Chino. Everyone should have a baby Chino. I think that's what you call it. You should have a baby Chino in your band. There's elements of that. But once again, in saying those elements, you're not really doing justice to the release. It has the experimental qualities on High Un Haciendo, which is like mostly a kind of almost spoken word kind of downbeat track. You have tracks like the closing track Lunar Waves, which dares to have all the kind of opulence of this like much more richer, fuller tone, underpinned by some synths, which are through the album. So like you're underpinned by that, which allow less chaos at the end and more kind of probably one of the more conventional tracks on here. Keyhole Romance, absolute fucking banger. Like the perfect quintessential single. It's like it does everything it needs to do and gets out. But what kind of struck me about it was New Infinities is the track that comes right after it, and it kind of, I almost thought when that track kicked off, I was like, all right, this is just the tone of the album now. But it somehow manages to be more intense, but at the same time more melodic, which is just fucking weird. Dare I Say is another track where you get into these, the band like have longer form tracks, but are like somehow manage to pack in everything that you get in the longer form track into shorter tracks as well, without feeling like you've lost a step. And that's a rare art, because like when they go longer form, and by the way, longer form on this is about 5.5 minutes. When they go longer form, you're taken through everything guided perfectly, and it works in that form. But when they want to go shorter, it's not because they're doing an old Dillinger trope, which was the short tracks are the ones that are all spitting venom, piss and vinegar from start to finish. Not on this track. On this album, you get shorter tracks here that have anarchy and full-blown melody, but they manage to, encapsulate it into 2.5 minutes, and then they're out, and that's all they need to do. My issue with the album overall is maybe its overall lack of identity. It does feel like a transitional album, and I think Thought Crimes will benefit from time. Yeah. Because I think you get that first one out your system where you are, like he's admitted himself, predominantly writing and playing everything. That when you get, unless that's the mechanism which is going to do most of the albums moving forward, I get the feeling on the next release you're going to hear more of a band sound. This does feel like it is almost laser focused to Greg Puciato is the guy you come back to, because he's the prime example of, you get a vision of someone that has come out of one of the most influential bands of the last 25 years, Dillinger Escape Plan. The clones of Dillinger are everywhere now. It's difficult to instantly just draw a line in the sand and move on from that. And I think they've done part of that. It definitely owes a lot to it, sits comfortably within it. If you told me this was a B-sides rarities Dillinger release and let me hear one or two songs, I could probably believe that. It certainly separates it the longer it goes on. But that's maybe my only gripe about this one, I think, is it maybe lacks a bit of identity without borrowing too much from other elements and clear influences. You can chart the influences on here. It doesn't surprise me, the Glassjaw thing. Glassjaw are a Long Island band. That's where they're from, Long Island, New York. So that kind of sound is in that area, and if the band are from that area, they grew up listening to Glassjaw, so that makes sense. It's not bad either, and it's not egregious. I'm not sitting there listening to, oh, Daryl Palumbo's on this. You know, I'm not thinking that at all, but it's the cadence and the register and the way the track is played and formed. So the production, we'll get into this. Production's fucking great. Absolutely wicked. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's intense right to the point of being distorted, but never goes over the edge. And it still has room where everything is completely audible. The nuances with the synths, it's all there. So yeah, I thought this album was, in a lot of respects, better than what I expected. It maybe didn't live up to my full expectations, because Keyhole Romance promises so much from that track. And you get elements of it throughout, but it's never really the sum of all its parts. If that makes sense. There's a distinct lack of identity from start to finish on the release. It feels like groups of songs together that flow really well into each other, and then we're changing direction, and then groups of songs that kind of fit within that cluster, and then we're changing direction again, and then groups of songs. But yeah, I mean, if you are a Dillinger Escape Plan fan, and you're sitting there thinking, I have a hole in my life that can't be filled right now, there are quite a few bands out there that are delivering the goods. That Comedian album that we reviewed earlier on by the band whose name I can't remember. Yes. They released an album that was, once again, it was a kind of riff on a theme. And the core was Dillinger, and then everything else you got on top of it. This is kind of doing the same thing, although it's the core and then the foundation level above it, and maybe the first couple of rows of bricks up are more Dillinger, and then you get a window or two above it. So it was a lot to. But if ever you were going to sit there and like say those things, this guy played in Dillinger, so he's allowed that. He's like, you know what I mean? He was the guy in Dillinger doing all the drums. So to me, that's fine. He ain't copying anyone. That's his sound. So yeah, like I say, I think it's great. I think there's going to be a ton of people out there that will welcome this album into their life. But to me, the true interest, the true part of me that's like, I wonder what will be on album number 2. I think album number 2 is the one where we find out how much a band plays into forming that sound. Because the idea of musicians, we should just call this the Not Dillinger Escape Plan review. Musicians that weren't in Dillinger playing over the top of someone that was. That to me is the interesting factor, to see how that changes things. So yeah, once again, surprise, surprise, a guy who was in Dillinger Escape Plan is fucking massively talented. And has easily transitioned into another band which sounds great. News at 10. It's honestly, it's like at this point I'm like, did they just like have like a moratorium on the best musicians around? It feels weird. Like bands, you should always have a shite member of your band. That's the law. So
I did not expect to be called out so badly on this fucking podcast.
You know, that's the rule is you should always have one member of the band that's not as good as the rest. And it just so happens that Dillinger never experienced that. So yeah, I think this is. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about it, but I'm fully on board with thoughtcrimes. I think there is room for improvement for sure.
Okay. Kyle, you didn't do the reaction, but
I heard the single.
Check the single out.
He's also done every single Dillinger album on a Twitch stream.
That's true. What did you think of this one?
I listened to this the first time and slid off my chair. I fucking love this album.
Oh, nice.
For all of the reasons Duncan said. So without rehashing too much of what he went over, there's such an incredible mix of talent and just raw, focused I'm going to write this fucking song and it's going to have weird glitchy beats and bits of synth and industrial noises, and then we're going to go into some fucking thing that sounds like it could come from a Dillinger album. I mean, I'm a massive Dillinger fan, of course, and he's the drummer in Dillinger, so like Duncan said, he's allowed to sound like Dillinger. Yeah. Fuck off. That's the end of it. That's the end of all I'm going to say about that, where he came from, because this does, I feel like it stands on its own more than Duncan said, because of all of these extra electronic bits, and the vocalist is way different in the cleans, and he's, like you said, he's in a different range, and he's got such a, I don't know what to say, like when he goes high up, it sounds more glassy and all this kind of stuff, and it's just, it fits so well together. I don't know how they managed to write these riffs and these songs and put it all together and just be like, yeah, this is what we are, because it does sound and feel like an honest representation of who they are at this time. Influences be damned. So I mean, they are who they are, they come from where they come from, and they're going to do what they're going to do, and I think this is a fantastic, like, they did an EP before, which I might have to get on vinyl now. Great.
Dave, you shouldn't have mentioned the vinyl. Never mention the vinyl.
But no, this is a welcome addition to the type of music I fucking love to listen to, and I'll be coming back to this a lot. Loads. The production is goddamn perfect for what it is. The bass tone is unbelievable. The guitar tone is unbelievable. The vocals are unbelievable. The drumming's all right. No, I'm kidding. Unbelievable as well. Just everything came together on this just in such a way. It just hit me like, yeah, man, just keep going. And they did for 14 tracks, or however long it is. I didn't feel fatigued through it. I didn't feel like there was rehashed or ground gone over in a same boring sort of way. It was like it all felt fresh. Like, okay, this is that guy from that place, right? But there's a lot more here than what he's previously done, especially since he picked up the guitar again after years and years and years, and he was just like, I'm going to do this now. I don't know if that was out of necessity or if he actually wanted to do it, because they said his friend told him to do it, who's now the guitarist in the band. So, but either way, it came out great. If he's sat here going, yeah, I'm just going to do this thing, fuck it, I'm a musician, I'm going to do my music, this is what I do, like, great, you keep doing it, because I'm going to keep listening to it. So yeah, liked it a lot.
Okay.
He's on the fence.
Interesting.
He's conflicted. He's got a weight on his shoulders.
I'm kind of back and forth on this, if I'm honest.
Really? Back and forth.
I'll start with what I like. I like albums that are unpredictable. With this album, you don't know whether you're going to end up in a frenzy of that kind of like chaotic hardcore mixed with the kind of mathcore timings. Or be at the complete opposite end of that with this like alternative melody and glitchy electronics. Yes, it does have a lot of Dillinger similarities musically and vocally, but I think that there is a little bit of a push beyond that and more of the kind of alternative stylings in their sound. And I think that's where they separate a little bit from Dillinger. Tracks like Mirror Glue, for example, has that very like abrasive, hostile delivery. It's got that kind of like Converge meets Dillinger type rhythms and venom, but then adding in like a little drum and bass style bit of electronics, and then dropping in a kind of huge roomy alternative style melody towards the end is really clever. Those moments, I was feeling little bits of like almost like Team Sleep or Cross, that type of vibe, which I really enjoyed.
Baby Chino, Dave.
Baby Chino, and I think it's that use of dynamics throughout this release that gives it the appeal. The way they switch from something really chaotic and intense into these kind of dreamy alternative sections almost makes what comes after kind of more impactful. And the chaos is here in spades, like even in the electronic parts at times. So you need that contrast and to balance it out and stop the album from becoming too exhausting. And they do it pretty well. Like for a first album, it's really well done. I think they've got a really good understanding of arrangements and structures and how to keep the listener engaged. Adding in little electronic interludes like on the title track, just to kind of give you that breather before the next kind of wave of chaos. Or even knowing when to rein it in just for a few minutes to give you something kind of less off kilter, with more of a kind of emotional depth like you get on New Infinities, are almost going to like kind of noise rock territory on Dare I Say, and it all feels very confident, wherever they go musically. And I think, that experience they've had in other band, that kind of shines through on this release. The styles complement each other well. They don't overpower you with too much of one sound. And as you would imagine, the musicianship is fantastic. Like Billy Reimer shows he's just as good a guitarist as he is a drummer, which is mind-blowing. But he's surrounded himself with guys that can keep up with him. It doesn't sound like Billy Reimer and company. These guys also have really good playing chops. And I'm glad to hear he's recorded the drums for the album too, because one, he's too good not to. Why would you not? But also, because he's written a lot of the music, I think he'll have more of an understanding of what fits best rhythmically. I'm sure.
Also plays into, like, when we did our reaction for Keyhole Romance, there is a bit where the drumming is just going absolutely nuts. And I said to you, I was like today, listen to that drummer. When did this become the norm? Like, when did this just become like the norm for drummers? Turns out it was the Dillinger drummer, which actually makes a whole lot more sense. It makes me feel a little bit better that there are, like, it's just not like a standard now where every drummer's just like this.
True. I'm sure, like, when he was writing this material, he was probably thinking about drum parts at the same time. And the drumming on this is great. It's super tight, really inventive. But he knows when to kind of, play in the pocket when the time is right as well. So the album's got a lot of positives. I don't disagree with that. I don't think it's the full package yet. For me, that it kind of showed towards the end of the album. The album, for me, it kind of started to run out of ideas. I felt like it became less kind of gripping for me.
Definitely less chaotic at the end.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Conscience on Tilt, track 8, I think. Yeah. It's still got like some of that kind of like the deranged kind of rhythms and a bit of hostility, but I just felt like there was something missing. Like I didn't feel that they really leaned into the melody enough on some of those tracks, like to get the kind of hook in. There's a little bit of melody that they stick it in just to break up the relentlessness of the tracks. And the same, there's a part on the Drowning Man that's great, but they tend to leave it towards the end of the track, and it felt a little bit late, to be honest. I felt like if they were going to use that, they maybe should have used it a bit earlier and maybe even repeated it again as well. It just didn't have enough impact for me. And I'm not saying every track needs to have melody or anything like that, but I think there was something missing from the last few tracks on the album, that just to keep me involved, give them a little bit more personality. I liked the stuff towards the start of the album with the strings. There was a really nice string section on Keyhole Romance, which was really cool. That just kind of elevated it to that next level. I think the last track, they did start to turn it around. I liked Lunar Waves. It's probably one of the most alternative tracks overall. The guitars.
See if you had an album with that.
Yeah, that would totally work.
You know what I mean? Like, because the idea of like Team Sleep is one of those, like, it's an oddity of an album that came out. I was like, this is fucking amazing. I can't wait to have an entire. Oh right, we're only ever doing one. You know what I mean? And there are elements of that certainly through that, like through Lunar Waves, where you get those little touches. Once again, it's kind of Chino West vocals. And all the rest.
They kind of pull back. The guitars are just kind of, they've got a nice kind of warm distortion to them. It's not abrasive. The vocals are clean all the way through. Drums are fairly straight. And they just kind of focus on delivering a really kind of solid, catchy, kind of satisfying ending to the album, which I really enjoyed. My only other issue that I've got is it's very Dillinger. It's very, very Dillinger. And I get what you're saying, like he's always the Dillinger drummer. Yeah, he's the Dillinger drummer. He wasn't the Dillinger guitarist.
But if you're playing, I don't know how you...
There's loads of drummers I could compare to the Dillinger drummer. I could say, he's like a Candiria drummer's very like the Dillinger drummer. There's lots of drummers I could say that, but he's pulled over a bit of a style in the guitar playing as well as the drumming.
He's a guitarist who's been surrounded by, for over a decade, guitarists that play a particular style, which is going to have an influence.
I totally get that, but why would you then want to release an album that sounds like the band you were previously in?
That's what I was saying before. It is who he is. That's what he
does. For all we know, his guitar playing was on that side of things before he joined Dillinger. Could be why he was attracted to Dillinger. I don't know. It's a weird one. I'm with you. In principle, I am with you. And if the guy wasn't in Dillinger before, I would definitely be more like, come on. Like, there's being influenced by and there's sounding like, right? Yeah. Those are two different things. And I think It's like it's the Greg Puciato thing as well. Like when you listen to his first solo album, some of the most discordant stuff on that is just the really dark industrial stuff that Dillinger did. And it makes me wonder, is that because Greg was pushing that element and that's why that's on that album? Or is it that he wrote stuff like that, really liked it, so when he had the opportunity to do more of it, he expanded into that? When you get that here, I think this is what I'm saying. On album number 1, I think you can give him leeway. I think on album number 2, if it's just this again, at that point I'm like, right, you've got a band there now. If you want Dillinger Light, that's cool. And no offense to them, but if you want to just sound like Dillinger Escape Plan, to continue on, that's maybe an issue for me. I give him leeway on the first release. On the second release, I'm a bit more. It does sound really good though.
It's well done.
Dillinger doesn't exist anymore.
It's well done, but I just feel like if I'm going to listen to something like that, I'm going to reach for Dillinger. You know what I mean?
I would as well. There's no disputing that. There's no disputing that.
I mean, this is good, but it's not. I don't think it's at that level, to be honest. If it was me, I think I would have tried and pushed away from that sound and try to do something different. I think it's just very similar to what he did before with Dillinger. Even though he was just a drummer, it is a very similar sound.
It's also interesting that you said, and just a little point, because when you mentioned it, I thought that's a really interesting concept that we could have went down further in the review, and I'm kind of glad we didn't, because it's a black hole, so we'll just superficially cover it. The alternative stuff that Dillinger did was very Nine Inch Nails sounding, because Greg sounds like he beefed up steroid version of Trent Reznor.
True.
Vocally here, this guy has more a cadence of like something somewhere between a Daryl Palumbo and a Chino Marino, and as a result of that, the alternative stylings that they then employ sound more like that.
Yeah,
it's just really interesting to hear how those, like, you insert two different styles of alternative music against the background of that kind of chaotic jazzy staccato thing, how it can, how it works, like it still works. You know what I mean? Like really, really, really well. Like those elements go together surprisingly well, and probably shouldn't go as well as they do, but you get those elements, you're like, yeah, this is kind of interesting, which once again is just another element where I'm like, yeah, like it's kind of cool how they've adapted that way. And it's another thing that makes them different, but the formula's still the same. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So ratings for Altered Pasts. Duncan, what's your rating on this one?
I'd give this a 4. I think this is a super strong release. I think it's recorded really, really well. I think there's plenty of new ideas while covering ideas that do feel familiar, but with their own kind of, like, it's just off to the side. It's like parallel universe Dillinger Escape Plan. What would happen if the band had different members and the drummer was also the guitarist? It's kind of off there in this parallel universe. There's plenty here to keep you interested. I think I think there's room to pull people that have never listened to Dillinger before in and give them like something really cool. Also at the side, I think if you're clambering and you really have been salivating for something that is of that world, this feels like a logical next step. But to me, like I said before, I think all the parts are really, really cool. I think they're constructed it really, really well. I love the ideas. The next album, I will be genuinely curious to hear what the next album sounds like, because that to me is where I think you will finally hear what Thoughtcrimes is as an entity, knowing what we know about just how this album was actually written. So there you go. 4 out of 5.
Cool. Kyle?
I'm going to come in at 4.5 out of 5.
Ooh.
Enjoyed it a great deal. Influences be damned. I loved it. I'm going to listen to it loads. So.
Nice. I'm completely different. I'm 3.5 on this one. Enjoyed it. I think what they've done, arrangement-wise, structurally and musically, is impressive. The last kind of part of the album just kind of lost me a bit. Just could have been a bit stronger, and it's I keep thinking about Dillinger when I'm listening to it, to be honest. Just it is what it is. Still enjoyable. 3.5 for me. The album drops on August 26th on Pure Noise Records. I'll put links below to the band, to their Bandcamp and all that sort of stuff, so you can check it out. Let us know what you think. Stick some comments in below. That is the review. Thanks for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.